Now that I've had my coffee, we can actually begin. Today's video is brought to you by MassDrop, the largest community commerce platform in the world. And right now they have an awesome drop going on the DX Racer Tank Series TB29 chair that supports gamers up to 6 foot 7 inches and 450 pounds. And the great news is MassDrop and DX Racer always have drops going, so be sure to click the link below to learn more about the DX Racer chairs currently available at MassDrop. Welcome here, guys, to part 2 of Project Red Mist. And if you guys have not seen part 1, check it out. You can watch it right here. And if you have not, it's gonna be a little card that pops out. You guys can click it if you're on desktop. Otherwise, I'll try to remember to put the links in the description if you're watching it on mobile. But anyway, there is a playlist as well for the original build I did on this system nearly 2 years ago, showing the Z87 build we did, and so you guys can get an idea of the parts as they were versus what is new and what's going into this update or upgrade or whatever you will. Now, this is a client build, guys. It's not a giveaway, it's not anything like that. This is not my computer. I'm getting a lot of questions. People ask me if I'm giving this away. I mean, that's really? Now, I don't know how far I'm gonna get today, and I'll talk about why at the end of this video, because there's a little bit of a snag, not like parts compatibility or anything like that. Well, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the end of the video, but all I have planned today is to get the GPU blocks installed on the 3980 Ti's. That can take a little while, you know, when you have to do backplates and all of the heat pads and make sure everything's installed properly. All the 980 Ti's have already been tested. We did that in part 1, so we made sure they all worked. Remember, guys, test your hardware before you start water cooling anything. That way you know that way you'll know if there's a problem before you get it all built, because trust me, it's a pain in the ass taking it all apart. But I wanted to get started on some of the wiring and stuff, but unfortunately I'm still waiting on the custom sleeve cables. Can't go anywhere or do anything without that. And I wanted to get started on the tubing, but I can't, and I'll talk about why again at the end of this video. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and do some fancy schmancy camera work here, hopefully, or semi-schmancy. I mean, let's be honest, it's just me filming it. I'm not like Dimitri or anything. But let's go ahead and get the water blocks on the EVGA 980 Ti's, and let's talk about why we can't go any farther yet on this build. Now that all the blocks are installed, I always make sure to test the cards again. That way I can make sure there was nothing wrong with the installation of the block. And I know that this is freaking some people out right now, like, wait a minute, you have the system on and there's no water in the block? Jay, what the hell's wrong with you? Oh my God. Well, I showed this once in the Skunkworks build, and I wanted to go ahead and show it again. That Maxwell is so efficient. You can run the system, as you can see right now, the graphics card's at 39C, with no water, no heat sink, just the block touching it, so there's no fins or anything, and no airflow. Like, I mean, there's some air touching the back of the back plate on the back. Geez, I couldn't think for a second there. The back plate on the back is there, but there's no water in there. There's no air, no nothing. And as you can see, we are chilling at 39C. Oh, we just hit 40. But as you can see here, even with a browser going in the background, which you guys know, or maybe you don't know, Google Chrome uses GPU acceleration. So it actually puts a little bit of the GPU under load, even though it says 0, it is using the GPU to render all of the videos and stuff like on YouTube and all these tabs I've got going here. And even then you can see we don't have any sort of cooling issue. So yes, if you're putting water blocks on your Maxwell-based cards, I wouldn't necessarily try this with AMD. I guess it could work. But with Maxwell-based cards, you can see, you can do a test to make sure everything's working and you can get to your desktop with there being absolutely no fluid whatsoever in your block. I mentioned in the beginning of this video that there's going to be some changes here that have kind of made it so that I can't really move too far forward, and that being the fact that my fluid in Skunkworks is turning brown again, and I'm not using pastel, and I'm not even using Mayhem's fluid. I'm using Mayhem's dye, but the fluid that I'm using is actually the Primo Chill Clear. Now, I don't believe it's the fault of the clear, and I don't believe it's the fault of the Mayhems at this point. The only common denominator in all of this, when the color change issue started, was when I switched to my Nemesis radiators. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily the fault of the Nemesis. They've been cleaned and cleaned and cleaned. And I can tell you that when I had the yellow in the previous builds, I wasn't getting color shift because, I don't know, I mean, the coolant was really hot. So the GPU loop kept turning brown, and now that I added the VRMs and the chipset and the CPU in the CPU loop on Skunkworks, now lo and behold that CPU loop is getting hotter, and it's now starting to turn brown. And all of the years that I've been doing water cooling, now 13 years, I have never dealt with fluids changing color like that. And I've always water cooled my graphics cards, and I've always water cooled them together with the CPU loop, and the temps can get really hot, especially in the AMD system I had. Temps got really hot with my 580 with only having a single 360 radiator. Again, never had color shift issues whatsoever. I've been running the same fluid in my test bench in here, and even had the 290 water-cooled cryovenom card from VisionTech hooked up in there. That fluid has not changed a single shade and not a bit of brown. So I'm just going to go ahead and change the radiators in both systems and see what happens. So that's why we're kind of stuck, because I'm not going to do any of the bends and stuff because the radiator ports are slightly different on the location of the EK than they are with the Hardware Labs radiators. Not to mention too, the thicknesses of the EK radiators are a little bit different. Instead of being 30, like one is 38 and the other one's like 45. So we are going to be going with you know, a little bit thicker radiator as well. So until I get those radiators in, I can't really move too far forward. I'm gonna paint the SLI bridge white and remove the SLI sticker and then put in the red JayzTwoCents gel, we're gonna call it. And we're gonna see, yeah, it's gonna look pretty good. But the nice thing about this being anodized aluminum is if we don't like the white, we can just use aircraft remover and strip it, and it won't affect the anodizing, and we can start all over. I also need to do the glass tubing in between the cards right here, and then I could also get these tubes between the reservoirs and the GPU kind of ready to go, because we already know how far those have to go. They're just right there. Anyway, guys, I hope this video's entertained you in some way. I don't know, I'm just kind of logging what we do with the system here. And I will be fully documenting what is happening again with the fluid inside Skunkworks. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.